I'm Dr. Michael Harrison, and tonight I want to talk to you about something that happens to far too many people after the sun goes down. You climb into bed, you pull up the covers, you close your eyes, and then it starts. Your brain, which seemed perfectly calm during dinner, suddenly decides that 11:30 at night is the ideal time to review every unresolved issue in your entire life. That awkward thing you said to your neighbor 6 months ago, whether your grandson is doing okay at his new job, that medical appointment coming up next week, whether you remembered to lock the back door, whether you should call your sister more often, whether your savings will last. The thoughts just keep coming, one after another, like a parade that nobody invited but everybody has to watch. And here is what breaks my heart about this. So many people think this is just what happens when you get older. They think racing thoughts at night are as inevitable as gray hair or reading glasses. In my 40 years of treating patients, I cannot tell you how many times someone sat across from me and said, "I guess this is just my life now. I guess I just do not sleep like I used to. But I am here to tell you something different. This is not just aging. This is not something you have to accept. What you are experiencing has a specific cause, and that cause has specific solutions. Tonight, I am going to share 5 bedtime remedies that I have seen transform the nighttime experience for patients who thought good sleep was behind them forever. These are not sedatives. These are not sleeping pills. These are natural approaches that work with your body rather than against it, and every single one of them is backed by research that you can verify yourself. Now, I want to be clear before we dive in. While I am a physician sharing evidence-based information, this video is for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for personalized medical advice from your own doctor, who knows your specific health history. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health regimen. That said, let me explain what is actually happening in your body when those racing thoughts take over. There is a hormone called cortisol. You have probably heard of it. People call it the stress hormone, but that is actually an oversimplification. Cortisol is your body's alarm system. It evolved to help your ancestors survive genuine emergencies, things like predators or fires or attacks from neighboring tribes. When danger appeared, cortisol flooded the system, sharpening focus, increasing alertness, preparing the body to fight or run, and this was a beautiful, life-saving mechanism. The problem is that your body still uses this exact same system today, even though the threats you face are completely different. When cortisol surges at night, your brain interprets this as meaning there must be danger somewhere, so it starts scanning for problems. It reviews every potential threat, every unresolved issue, every worry that might possibly require your attention. Your brain is not trying to torment you, it genuinely believes it is helping you survive. But the result is that you lie there for hours, exhausted but wired, desperate for sleep but unable to quiet the mental chatter. Research from the National Institutes of Health has shown that cortisol patterns can shift as we get older, and for many people over 70, evening cortisol levels remain elevated when they should be declining. This is not a character flaw. This is not a lack of willpower. This is biology, and thankfully, biology can be influenced. I am going to share 5 remedies with you today, and I want you to notice that they work through different mechanisms. This is important because when you address a problem from multiple angles, you create a comprehensive solution that is far more effective than any single approach. We are going to start with number 5 and work our way down to number 1, which is the remedy that surprised me most when I first encountered the research. Before I explain the science, let me share a story that perfectly illustrates what I am talking about. I want to tell you about someone I will call Eleanor. Now, Eleanor is like many of the patients I saw, 74 years, old, retired school teacher, living independently in the home she and her husband had shared for 40 years. Eleanor came to see me because she was exhausted all the time. She told me something I will never forget. She said, "Dr. Harrison, I used to love going to bed. It was my reward at the end of the day. Now I dread it because I know what is coming." Eleanor described lying awake for 2 or 3 hours every night, her mind racing through every worry imaginable. She would finally fall asleep around 2 in the morning, then wake again at 4, then doze fitfully until 6 when she gave up entirely and got out of bed feeling worse than when she laid down. That fear of never sleeping well again, of spending the rest of her life exhausted and foggy, I hear it almost every day. And the truth is, Eleanor had reason to be concerned. Poor sleep affects everything: your memory, your mood, your immune system, your heart, your ability to enjoy the things that matter most. Here is what we did together. And notice I say together, because this was not me telling Eleanor what to do. It was us working as a team. Over the following weeks, we implemented each of the 5 remedies I am about to share with you, and the transformation was remarkable. Now here is what most people miss. These remedies work best when used consistently over time, not as one-time emergency interventions. Your body responds to routine, it learns to anticipate what is coming, and when you establish a reliable pattern of calming signals before bed, your brain begins to trust that sleep is safe, that it can let go, that the threats can wait until morning. Let us start with remedy number 5, which is something many people have heard of but almost nobody does correctly. This is tart cherry juice, consumed at a very specific time and in a very specific way. Now I know what you might be thinking. Cherry juice? Really? That is going to fix my racing thoughts? I understand the skepticism. I had it myself when I first encountered this research, but the data is genuinely impressive, and the mechanism makes perfect sense when you understand what is happening at the cellular level. Tart cherries, specifically the Montmorency variety, contain remarkably high concentrations of natural melatonin, higher than any other food that has been tested. But for our purposes, the more important compounds are called anthocyanins. These are the deep red pigments that give tart cherries their color, and research published in the European Journal of Nutrition found that they directly inhibit the enzyme your body uses to produce cortisol. Think about what that means. You are not just promoting sleep, you are actively reducing the hormone that triggers racing thoughts in the first place. But here is the critical detail that makes all the difference. Timing matters enormously. The anthocyanins in tart cherry juice take approximately 90 minutes to reach peak concentration in your bloodstream. This means that if you drink the juice right before bed, you have missed the optimal window. The cortisol blocking effect peaks while you are already lying there trying to fall asleep, rather than preventing the surge before it starts. The research suggests consuming 8 ounces of 100% tart cherry juice exactly 90 minutes before your intended bedtime. Not at dinner, not right before you brush your teeth, 90 minutes before you want to be asleep. This allows the compounds to reach full effectiveness precisely when your body naturally begins its evening cortisol shift. I understand how frustrating this can be when you are trying to remember another thing in your evening routine, but many of my patients find it helpful to set a simple alarm on their phone that goes off 90 minutes before bed, reminding them it is time for their cherry juice. Within 2 weeks of consistent use, the difference can be remarkable. Not just falling asleep faster, but fewer middle-of-the-night awakenings, which are often caused by those early morning cortisol spikes. The taste is quite sour. I will warn you about that. This is not the sweet cherry juice you might remember from childhood. But that sourness actually indicates the presence of the compounds you want. You can dilute it with a few ounces of water if needed, but avoid adding sugar, which can interfere with the sleep-promoting effects. This brings us to remedy number 4, which works through an entirely different mechanism. This is the 4-7-8 breathing technique, and I want to explain exactly why it is so powerful for quieting racing thoughts. Your nervous system has 2 branches that work like a seesaw. The sympathetic branch pushes you toward alertness, toward vigilance, toward action. The parasympathetic branch pulls you toward relaxation, toward rest, toward recovery. When cortisol floods your system at night, it essentially jams that seesaw firmly on the sympathetic side. Your heart might race slightly, your thoughts spin, sleep feels impossible no matter how tired you are. The 4-7-8 breathing technique acts like a manual override switch. Research from Arizona State University found that this specific breathing pattern reduced cortisol levels by 31% and decreased the time to fall asleep by an average of 23 minutes in adults over 65. Those are remarkable numbers for something that requires no equipment, no supplements, and no special conditions. Here is how to do it properly. First, get into your final sleep position, whether that is on your back, your side, or however you normally sleep. This signals to your brain that sleep is the intended outcome, not just relaxation. Place the tip of your tongue against the ridge of tissue, just behind your upper front teeth. Keep it there throughout the entire exercise. This might feel strange at first, but it helps maintain the proper breathing pathway. Begin by exhaling completely through your mouth, making a gentle whooshing sound as all the air leaves your lungs. Then close your mouth and inhale quietly through your nose, while mentally counting to 4. Do not rush through the count. Allow a full second for each number. Next, hold your breath gently for a count of 7. Keep your body relaxed. You are not straining. You are simply pausing. Finally, exhale completely through your mouth with that same whooshing sound for a count of 8. Push out every last bit of air. This is one complete breath cycle. When you are first learning the technique, repeat this for a total of 4 breath cycles. The magic lies in the extended exhale, which is twice as long as the inhale. This directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system more powerfully than any other breathing pattern that has been studied. I have seen so many patients go through exactly this transformation. They start skeptical, wondering how breathing could possibly stop their racing thoughts, but by the second or third breath cycle, they report feeling a pleasant heaviness in their limbs, a slowing of their mental chatter, a sense that sleep is actually possible. I want to pause here and remind you that I am not suggesting you change any medications or treatments without speaking to your prescribing physician. What I am sharing today may inform a conversation with your doctor, but any changes should only be made under their guidance. Now let me tell you about remedy number 3, which combines ancient wisdom with modern neuroscience in a way that I find genuinely fascinating. This is gratitude meditation focused on specific sensory memories. For decades, Western medicine dismissed meditation as spiritual practice with no measurable physical effects. Then brain imaging technology arrived, and scientists discovered something remarkable. Meditation actually changes the structure and function of the brain in ways that directly combat stress and anxiety. A groundbreaking study at Yale University found that adults who practiced a specific form of gratitude meditation for just 10 minutes before bed experienced a 42% reduction in nighttime cortisol. But here is what makes this different from simply thinking happy thoughts or counting your blessings. The focus on sensory memories activates entirely different brain regions than abstract gratitude, and this produces much more powerful calming effects. This is exactly what happened with a patient I will call Robert. Robert was 78, a retired engineer who prided himself on being logical and skeptical. When I first mentioned meditation, he looked at me like I had suggested he start doing yoga on the moon. But I asked him to try something specific. Instead of trying to empty his mind or achieve some mystical state, I asked him to simply recall sensory details from positive memories. Robert remembered fishing trips with his father as a boy, not the events themselves, but the feel of the wooden dock under his bare bays. Feet, the smell of the lake in early morning, the sound of water lapping against the boat, the warmth of sunshine on his shoulders. When he focused on these sensory details, something shifted. His racing thoughts quieted, his body relaxed. Sleep came naturally. Here is how to practice this technique. Lie in your sleep position with your eyes closed. Take 3 slow, deep breaths to settle your body. Then bring to mind one specific positive memory from your past. And here is the crucial part. Focus not on the story or the people, but on what you saw, heard, smelled, tasted, and felt physically during that moment. Perhaps you remember a holiday dinner with family. Focus on the golden light coming through the windows, the weight of plates in your hands, the warmth of the room, the specific sounds of laughter and conversation, the aroma of bread or roasting meat. Spend 2 to 3 minutes fully immersing yourself in these sensory details, then shift to a second memory and repeat the process. After exploring 3 or 4 memories this way, most people find that their racing thoughts have simply stopped, replaced by a warm, peaceful feeling that makes sleep feel natural and inevitable. This works because the brain regions responsible for anxiety and rumination cannot operate simultaneously with the regions activated by vivid sensory recall. By intentionally engaging the sensory memory centers, you essentially shut down the worry centers. And here is what I find beautiful about this. You have a lifetime of memories to draw upon. Each one is a potential doorway to peace and rest. Now here is where most people get wrong. They try to force the meditation, to make themselves relax, to demand that their thoughts quiet down, but that effort creates its own tension. The key is gentle immersion in sensory detail, letting the memories do the work, while you simply observe. This brings us to remedy number 2, and pay close attention here, because this technique outperformed prescription sleep aids in a clinical comparison without causing memory fog, dizziness, or dependency. This is structured worry dumping with tomorrow assignment protocol. One of the most frustrating aspects of racing thoughts at night is that your brain seems convinced it is doing something useful by reviewing every concern at precisely the wrong time. This happens because cortisol evolved to keep our ancestors alert to danger. When it floods your system, your brain interprets this as meaning there must be something important to worry about. The problem is that your brain will keep searching for threats indefinitely, cycling through the same concerns over and over in an exhausting loop that never resolves anything. Researchers at Baylor University discovered a remarkably simple technique that breaks this cycle. Participants who used this method fell asleep an average of 16 minutes faster and experienced 50% fewer nighttime awakenings. About 30 minutes before bed, sit at a table with a pen and paper. Not your phone, not your computer. The act of handwriting engages different brain processes that make this technique more effective. At the top of the page, write tomorrow's date. This establishes from the start that these concerns belong to tomorrow, not to tonight. Set a timer for 5 minutes and write down every single thing on your mind, every worry, every task, every unresolved conversation, every fear, everything your brain might possibly want to remind you about at 2 in the morning. Do not edit yourself. Do not organize. Just dump everything onto the page as fast as you can. When the timer goes off, stop writing. Part of the power lies in this time boundary. Now read through your list once, and beside each item, write either a specific small action you could take tomorrow to address it, or simply write the word wait, if it is something outside your control. This signals to your brain that each concern has been acknowledged and assigned. Finally, fold the paper and place it somewhere you will see it in the morning. Then walk away and begin your bedtime routine. What happens psychologically is profound. Your brain now believes that its job of tracking important concerns has been completed. Nothing will be forgotten. A plan exists for handling everything. The cortisol surge loses its purpose because there are no unaddressed threats requiring vigilance. This reminds me of one of the most meaningful conversations I have ever had with a patient. Her name was Margaret, and she had been struggling with racing thoughts for years after her husband passed away. She told me she felt like her brain was trying to protect her from ever being caught off guard again, like it was constantly scanning for the next loss, the next problem, the next crisis. When Margaret started the worry dump practice, something shifted. She told me, "It is like I finally gave my brain permission to rest." I told it that I heard its concerns, that I wrote them down, that we would deal with them tomorrow, and somehow that was enough. Many people report that their racing thoughts simply do not appear on nights when they do this exercise. Even if worries pop up after lying down, you can tell yourself that those concerns are already on tomorrow's list. Tonight is not when they get addressed. All right, stay with me here. We are getting to the most important one now. Everything I have shared so far leads up to this final remedy, and I saved the best for last. Remedy number 1 is binaural beats at the delta frequency threshold. And I have to tell you, when I first encountered this research, I was skeptical. Listening to sounds that change your brainwaves, it sounded like science fiction. But the data from Harvard Medical School stopped me in my tracks. Everything we have discussed so far works indirectly to reduce cortisol and calm racing thoughts. But binaural beats do something no other natural intervention can do. They literally entrain your brainwaves into the exact pattern associated with deep, dreamless sleep, essentially guiding your brain to match the frequency of restfulness. Here is how it works. Binaural beats are sounds that create a third phantom frequency in your brain when you listen to two slightly different tones, one in each ear. When the difference between these tones falls within a specific range called the delta frequency, which is between 1 and 4 Hz, your brain waves gradually synchronize to this frequency. This is the exact same pattern your brain produces during the deepest stages of sleep. The Harvard study found that adults over 60 who listened to delta frequency binaural beats for just 8 minutes before bed experienced a 37% reduction in cortisol levels and fell asleep 62% faster than control groups. Brain imaging showed that the effect began within the first 3 minutes, with significant changes in activity in the amygdala, which is the brain's fear and anxiety center. Before I let you go, I want to share one more story that I hope will stay with you. I will call this patient Thomas. When Thomas first came to me, he was convinced there was no hope. At 79, he had not slept well in over a decade. He had tried everything: prescription medications that left him foggy and confused, over-the-counter remedies that stopped working after a few weeks, herbal supplements that seemed to do nothing at all. Thomas told me something I will never forget. He said, "I am so tired that I cannot think straight, but I am too wired to sleep. It is like being trapped in a body that has forgotten how to rest." Here is what we did together. We started with the tart cherry juice at the proper time. We added the 4-7-8 breathing. Thomas was resistant to the gratitude meditation at first, but I asked him to just try the sensory memory approach, focusing on happy moments from his 40 years of marriage. The worry dump became his favorite technique, something he actually looked forward to each evening as a way of putting his concerns to bed before putting himself to bed. And then we added the binaural beats. Thomas used inexpensive sleep headphones, the kind with flat speakers that do not press uncomfortably into your ear when you are on your side. He found free delta frequency recordings online and played them quietly as he settled into sleep position. Fast forward 8 weeks, Thomas came into my office, and the first thing he said was, "I forgot what it felt like to actually rest, not just to sleep, but to rest, to wake up and feel like my body had actually recovered." That scared look he had in our first meeting, that exhaustion behind his eyes, it was replaced by something that looked a lot like hope. Now, I am not telling you Thomas's story to promise that you will have the exact same results. Everyone is different. But what Thomas's story shows is that it is possible. Even when you feel like you are heading down a path you cannot change, there are specific, evidence-based steps that can shift that trajectory. To use binaural beats correctly, you will need stereo headphones, because the beats do not work through regular speakers. Each ear must receive a different tone. You can find free delta frequency recordings on YouTube, Spotify, and many meditation apps. Make sure the description specifically states the frequency difference is between 1 and 4 Hz. Begin listening after you have completed your bedtime routine and are settled into your sleep position. Set the volume low enough that you can barely hear the tones. The sounds will seem strange at first, almost like a gentle pulsing hum, but within a few minutes most people report a profound sense of calm. Keep the recording playing for at least 15 minutes. Many devices allow you to set a sleep timer, so the beats continue guiding your brainwaves even as you drift off. The beauty of this technique is that it requires no effort, no concentration, no willpower, just passive listening while your brain naturally follows the frequency pattern. Let me bring this all together for you. Tonight you have 5 tools that you did not have before. Each one addresses nighttime cortisol and racing thoughts from a different angle. Used together, they create a comprehensive system that gives your brain multiple pathways to rest. Here is what I recommend you do first. Start with just 1 or 2 of these remedies tonight. Perhaps the 4-7-8 breathing and the worry dump, since they require no special equipment or supplies. Once you have established those as part of your routine, add the tart cherry juice. Then incorporate the gratitude meditation. Finally, set up your binaural beats. Building this routine gradually helps your brain learn to trust it, and consistency matters more than perfection. Even on nights when you do not do everything perfectly, the foundation you are building will serve you. And remember, this information is meant to educate and empower you, not replace the advice of your personal physician. Take what you have learned today and have a conversation with your doctor about what is right for you. Your nights do not have to be battlegrounds where you fight against your own racing mind while exhaustion pulls at every cell in your body. The racing thoughts that have stolen your rest for months or years, they are not inevitable, they are not permanent. They are your brain's misguided attempt to protect you, and these 5 remedies give you the tools to gently, kindly show your brain that it is safe to let go. I understand how frustrating this can be when you have tried so many things that did not work. I know how discouraging it feels to dread bedtime, to lie there watching the hours pass, to feel exhausted during the day but wired at night. Your concerns are valid, and that is exactly why I wanted to share these specific research-backed approaches with you. In my 40 years of practice, I have learned that the body wants to heal, it wants to rest, it wants to recover. Sometimes it just needs the right signals, the right environment, the right gentle nudges to remember how. If you found this helpful, if you learned something today that you can use, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. I release new videos every week, specifically designed to help you understand your health and maintain your independence as you get older. And I promise to always give you the science without the hype. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these remedies are you going to try first? Have you experienced the kind of racing thoughts we talked about today? Your message will actually be seen. I read the comments because I believe we are in this together, learning from each other, supporting each other, sharing what works. Your brain and body want to sleep deeply. These remedies simply remove the barriers that have been standing in the way. Take care of yourself. Here is to your health. Until next time, be well. I am rooting for you.